Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a Mon designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glanz. This week is our 100th episode. Woo! And this week we wanted to share our appreciation for all of our listeners and give somewhat of a recap of the past 100 episodes. So without further ado, let's get into this special show. Guys, we made it.
We made it.
100.
We're still standing. We still love each other, and no one's dead.
I call that success. Whatever else has happened, that is success.
I was telling my wife that the other day. I was like, like you watch like the Kardashians or any of these reality shows, Housewives of wherever. I was like, we've been doing this show. This is our 100th episode. We've never had a beef. There's no beefs.
Yeah, where's the beef, Dustin? Where is the beef?
That I'm aware of.
I'm sure there's people trying to, tuning in just to wait for the beef.
Probably.
But it's a vegetarian show.
We need like a real shit stirrer in the group. Although I feel like that's kind of been Dustin at points, yeah.
Yes.
We need to create some fake drama, or maybe we could do like the Beatles did, like the whole Paul is dead.
This is true. Okay, so guys, what have we organised? 100th episode must be something pretty special, right? Have we got a special guest lined up?
No.
Anyone?
We're it.
Oh,
The ball now.
have we maybe done something like collated a bunch of like special questions from the listeners that we could answer?
No again.
Okay.
No.
So far we're doing well.
100 episodes, right?
Could we
How do we make it this far?
could we not share? Is there anything we can remember over the past year or over the episodes? A bit of advice or
Oh, thank goodness, Ian, you've saved us. Yes to that.
Thank goodness
Let's do
for that.
no, not that. No, thing is, one coming up with the idea, but then actually executing on it. The fact that I haven't got it.
Ian, I think you're so wise, and I think as you grow older and your beard grows out, you're going to look like this wise Gandalf dude.
I'll bring a little one.
Are you
It
guys see the
definitely
Gandalf
has
too a little
that
bit?
look.
I could see him more
It
as like a
definitely has
Sauron,
that.
like the evil dude.
That was an evil laugh.
Yeah, he's got a whiter than white beard. First of all, I guess before we get into a bit of a recap and try and share some gems from the last 2 years, can you believe it? 2 years, had a few less wrinkles when we started doing this show. I wanted to give a thank you from all of us for the listeners. It's awesome. Like just before this, I read a personal letter that I received this week from a listener, which was absolutely incredible. And that combined with the messages on social media, the emails, people sucking up to Dustin at conferences, which I'm bitter about because I've never had. And, the reviews, we've had like something 200 and something 5-star reviews, which are like unbelievably kind and glowing. So thank you. It's incredibly humbling. It was never expected. It was literally the four of us sat in a room talking nonsense. I mean, it still is that. But when we started doing it, we had zero expectation. We were just like, yeah, let's try this. And it could be a bit of fun. So,
Yeah.
And also I was telling these guys at the time of recording, we're about to hit 750,000 downloads. 750,000 downloads, which I didn't even realize. I just checked this week. I was like, I haven't looked at this in a while. I was like, damn.
No, it's incredible.
That's insane. I literally thought we were like at 100, 200,000 max.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's like this for you guys. Like, this is like, for me, I really enjoy meeting up with you guys, but there's such like an amazing spin-off with all the emails that you get and that feeling that you somehow just your little voice is making a difference to somebody or at least can help somebody. I mean, that to me is, I don't know, it just makes it so much special, so much more special than it is with you three twins.
It really does, because people write and mention, like, for instance, I got a Christmas card. Speaking of Christmas cards, I got a couple from some people, and one person had written, and this happens quite frequently actually, they had written, "Thank you so much for, the stuff you do with Retro Supply and providing, brushes, blah, blah." But then just as equally, they were like, "Thank you so much for the Honest Designer Show and for the podcast episodes." So, I mean, it spreads far and wide because I hear that all the time.
Yeah, it's
So that's
amazing.
pretty neat.
It's been one of my favorite things that I've ever done.
Me
And
too.
I've got to know you guys so much better. Don't want to get too mushy here, but I found like I've made 3 friends in the process, and
Of course.
I can't wait to meet up and like have drinks and hang out with you guys. Have like a
Definitely.
jam with Dustin. I'm talking about guitar, not like marmalade, but yeah.
I feel like maybe like 30 or 40 years down the road when we're all retired, like we should just all get together once a year around Christmas, and then by then I'll have fallen off the wagon and started drinking again, and me and you can do some drunk jamming on the guitars and like we'll just all hang out and talk about the good old days. It would be nice.
Yeah, Ian and I may not be present for that. We might have something else to do.
Why?
Don't do us like that.
We could do like the Honest Designers on a cruise ship.
Oh my word!
Instantly, I'm thinking a cappella group with synchronized dance moves.
Definitely.
I could.
Also-
I'm trying to get into sort of like beatboxing, so you could provide the sort of the drums of the band via my my vocals and a looping machine.
You guys, why don't we make this next year, make our goal to have an Honest Designers cruise? We'll invite all the people, they can come on the cruise, and we'll have a whole cruise.
And we have workshops. The thing is, it's just a floating island, isn't it? A cruise ship.
I would love
It's
it.
like a floating city.
In my head, there's 2 versions of this. There's like a really glamorous yacht on the Thames or something, or even in the Caribbean. And then there's me sat drunk in a dinghy with Lisa like birthing me or something.
Yeah,
There's no
I picture
in-between.
you guys like on a rope hanging off the back, like as like it coasts around while you guys just like get smashed while me and Ian are teaching classes. And
I'm happy with
Doing
that,
the
Lisa. Sound good
responsible
to you?
thing. Me too. Absolutely. We'll shout some advice from the bottom.
Your laugh has got more evil, man, I swear.
It does.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, my word.
So before we get into the recap, shall we maybe give a little teaser for what we've got lined up for next year? Because it's been an amazing year. We've had some unbelievable guests. We've had
Yeah.
Aaron Draplin. We've had Aaron
Lauren
Blaze. We've had Lauren Hom. Like all kind, Diane Gibbs. Like some crazy names on. And obviously we're going to have a bunch more awesome guests next year. I
Yeah,
think
like
we're
Oprah
definitely going to
Winfrey.
start trying to do some live stuff, like appearing at conferences and that kind of thing. That's a big ambition of ours. Get a little Honest Designers panel would be pretty sweet. And we've been flirting with the idea of doing some live calls where we can actually do live Q&A and webinars and stuff like that. And even Dustin had a genius idea, which it's as good as done. When I like an idea, it's like, okay, that's happening. So we're going to make it happen with doing like a free Patreon or something like that. So not even necessarily like paying to support the show, but we could do a free version where it's like we give out bonus content and stuff. And I don't know, something cool like that.
Really got to give credit to Ian for that.
Oh, was that Ian? Sorry, mate. I thought that was
It's all right. It's all right.
Oh no! Oh,
No, it's fine.
On the 100th episode,
Our first Barney. Oh, you
It's the
guys
first
know what a
beef.
Barney is. Our first
The
Yeah.
first beat.
Yeah, our first beef.
how does this work?
Oh,
Your lettering's really good, and so's other people's. You see what I did?
No,
did
you
there?
first. It's got to start with Ian writing some sort of lettering that's like kind of like a little diss on you a little bit, and then like you write back like in like design cut somehow, like maybe in the bundle hidden in the background. It's like Ian is like I don't know. I don't even know what Ian is. Ian is just pretty good at lettering.
It's pretty much like Tupac and Biggie, right?
Yeah.
Similar
Yeah.
level.
Maybe next time I come to the office, I'll just sort of like storm in. Boom.
Oi, you. But yeah, I'm really excited about next year. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to be really fun. I do want to get more and more interactive with the listeners. I think some live calls, maybe even like a live recording. We can literally make it one of the episodes or a few of the episodes.
Yeah,
take
I would
a
love
live
that.
Q&A. I think that'd be a hell of a lot of fun. So stay tuned and watch this space.
Well, and aren't we actually really doing a conference? Like, aren't we doing one in London or somewhere in the UK?
It's like Birmingham, right?
Birmingham, but I need to finalise more details on that one.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. If we don't appear at Birmingham Design Festival, it is entirely on Ian, guys.
And we have really wanted to be at Creative South. So if all of you guys could just bombard Creative South with emails requesting that we're there, that would be awesome.
And for the record, we are not joking. Like, literally go spam city.
You guys are shameless, honestly.
It's fine. We've left our dignity at the door, Lisa.
I can see that. I like it.
Okay,
I
just to ensure that we don't spend the entire 100th episode pimping ourselves out, shall we recap some of the finest gems from the last couple of years, perhaps?
Yes.
Well, I think we need to give a special mention to Bob the Builder.
Yeah, he's brought us so many metaphorical gems. The show couldn't have gone forward without him.
He's built like a whole village of out of his metaphors.
Definitely.
I mean, I bet there's probably 750,000 designers out there who never associated with like grouting and graphic design, but now they do.
But the thing is, you know, when you're building a house, sometimes it's a struggle, and you come along things like what. I'm just trying to take it as far as I can.
I know it's brilliant, Ian. Go.
Oh, yeah.
He should have been the 100th guest.
You have to do a lot of groundwork that's not pretty and not actually anyone sees, but it's you know, and that comes through like you training, you teaching yourself programs, you know, going on courses, and just how important that is to the bit that actually looks pretty, which is the sort of top of the house and when it's finished. And how, you know, working with the client, it's not always straightforward. You're like halfway through it and they're like, actually, can you put the front door around the side? And you're like, okay. And then you have, and the thing is, if you did that to a builder, the builder will say, well, that's going to cost you extra money. Whereas sometimes when we come upon that, we're like, okay, it's going to take me like a week longer to do that project.
Exactly.
But that's fine.
Okay, I'm not even joking. Can we try and have the whole episode forcing ourselves to relate back to this house metaphor? So we've talked about authenticity. That's much like the transparency of the windows in the house. Boom.
That's too hard.
Oh, my word.
The reason why I use metaphors is just because I struggle sometimes to actually understand a concept. And so putting it in something that's like, so taking something that may be quite complex and putting it into something I know, not that I'm a builder, but building a house is like, you know, when you're kids, you've got Lego bricks. It's quite straightforward in terms of the actual, I'm not saying, you know, being a builder is straightforward, but the concept of building a house is something that you can picture visually.
Of course.
And so for me, that really because I work so much in my visual thing, you know, I have to, you know, someone might say something to me and I'm like, I really don't understand what that means. But if I can put it into a visual form, I'm like, oh, I understand now. So, so that's why why Bob the Builder comes in quite often.
And we love him. Okay, so looking at the past 100 episodes or 99 episodes, what are some of the standout tips that we think we can give people? Because I would love this episode to be a summary. It's like not everyone has time to go and listen through all 100. So what are like the absolute best gems? And feel free, you guys, like if you want to go to honestdesigners.com just to refresh your memory about some of what we've covered, that might help.
Well, the first thing that jumps into my mind is people always, they always wait for something to happen before they take the next leap. They either say, until I have X, or until I've learned Photoshop, or until I have an office in town, or until I have a business card. And the point is, you shouldn't be waiting. Just do it. Even if you feel you're not ready, you just got to take that leap, whether it's finding a new job or asking your boss for a raise or getting that client that you've been thinking about, or that kind of stuff. Don't procrastinate because you're making excuses because it's scary. I think just do it.
Nike it up.
Just do it, Nike. Exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Something that this is recent, so it's very fresh in my brain, but it might have been one of the biggest things that hit me all year was when we had Lauren Hom on, and she had said, and she had described her process of, she's like, I just make a project and I just put it into a 2-week window. And I just do something that I think will be really fun. It could be from, having some drinks with my friends one night or whatever. And then it's just, I bust something out in 2 weeks. And she talked about like boyfriend tears, or you can look on her site and see all sorts of things. And that was just so empowering to me, because sometimes it's so easy to feel like something has to be this big thing. And I like that she was even like, I make a mini site. She'll literally go make like a little, I'm guessing Squarespace site probably. And she commits that 2-week project to that and keeps it up. And they're like her little babies that kind of just live on the internet and are cool. And then off she goes. And to me, that was so empowering, because it just, it trims it down.
And we had similar stuff from Chris Spooner, because he talked about side projects when we had him on.
Yeah.
Same principle. It's
Exactly.
like, it just scratch that creative itch. If it's like, I feel like doing that, it's like, go and do it. I think people make so many excuses for actually executing and getting stuff done. Like when you really set your mind to something, you can literally get it done in like 2 weeks or a week or even a day. Like in the past, I've built an entire website and launched it in a day. Because it's like when I used to get the Harry Potter books when I was growing up, and I would just like consume them. I'd forget to eat because I would just speed read through the whole thing. I was so absorbed. You can do the same thing when you hit that flow state in your work or with a creative venture. You can just absolutely churn it out.
And I think you need to find out what is going to motivate you, and possibly, like, if I look at Lauren, I mean, I don't know for sure if that is what it is motivates her, but I get a sense that the fact that she's committing to that little mini website, that 2-week time frame, it's basically telling herself, okay, you got to show up for this, you got to take it seriously, because we've like bought a little domain name, we've launched a website, and we've put in an order to have, I don't know, 100 bottles printed or whatever it is. Like, you can't hide from that. And I think people need to figure out what it is that's going to make them not find a reason to not do it. God, that was terrible English, but I think you know what I mean.
I do.
No, there's so many ways you can do things. And so just to contrast, I'm just noticing this, and I'm curious. But by the way, I literally get messages where people say that now to me. I think I've even seen one where they hashtagged it. It was pretty funny.
I freaking love that. You've got your own catchphrase.
It's really funny. But I am curious if you guys have noticed this too, is that we all think that we're waiting to hear the right way to do something, when it turns out there is no right way. And here's a perfect example of this. So again, to go back to Lauren Hom, when Lauren Hom was talking about how she does stuff, she says, well, I'll hang out with my friends, or I'll notice something in life, and then I make a project out of it. She says, I figure if I find it interesting, that other people will find it interesting too, and that's what I make. Then last week, we had a guest on. His name is like escaping my mind.
Brad Colbo.
Brad. I'm sorry about that, Brad. We had Brad on, and Brad had said, no. He said, find what is
Oh, no,
doing
you're talking
well.
about Blair.
I'm sorry, Blair, yeah. Blair had said, find what's doing well, and then go towards that and commit fully to it. So it's two pieces of conflicting advice, but both of them have done really well with those pieces of advice. And I think I notice more and more, you look at anything, there's so many ways to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Just pick your favorite way that makes you feel good.
Yeah, the main thing is
exactly
just
that.
taking that action. Pick away and then just go and freaking do it.
And you got to choose what's right for you. So I think people make the mistake of trying to, well, she did it this way and he did it that way, so it's got to be the right way. It isn't. It's figuring out really what tickles your fancy and what you're going to be excited about waking up every day to actually go and commit your time to and do. And if you figure out halfway that this method isn't for me, definitely change. Like, don't feel that you have to now dig away at this, this foundation of Bob the Builder's house and you're getting nowhere, definitely find a new spot and start again, I think.
Actually, something I heard this week, I watched a video, shout out to a YouTube channel called Becky and Chris, and because they did one which was be okay with sucking at the beginning. And
yes. Oh, yes.
And that be okay with that, because like I had to be okay with that when I first started doing calligraphy, because it was rubbish. In my opinion, I don't know what it was like to other people, but you have to be okay with it looking terrible as you go through that process. And it's been the same for me with calligraphy, lettering, or a new style of lettering I might be doing, or, you know, recently I've been doing more stuff with a paintbrush. But I knew that at the beginning it wasn't going to look, you know, amazing. It was going to look slightly tatty. It was, you know, and the same with my YouTube channel. You know, you look at my first videos and I'm really awkward. You know, I'm not a natural person on camera back then. And it's taken me going through the process of doing it and being okay with it looking rubbish to get better. And you have to be in that sort of like, you know, it's all a bit dirty. It's all a bit rough around the edges.
You know what, though? Isn't it the most satisfying thing in the world? I love seeing that progress, and I love it getting easier and you building confidence. And it's like anything, doing this podcast, I can just do this with my eyes shut now, right? It's second nature. We've done it every week for 2 years. If you listen back to the early episodes of this, we're kind of fumbling around a bit more. We're a little bit more awkward. And it really transfers to so many things. It's like, I've been on a few other podcasts recently. You can just have a chat very seamlessly. You're not all self-conscious and like, oh, I hate the sound of my own voice and that kind of stuff. Same exact thing with design and finding your style and all this kind of thing. Like, don't worry about sucking, because it's the most joyful thing in the world to slowly suck less and less and actually get better.
Yes.
Well, if you remember when we started, you actually had to tell me, you were like, hey, you need to stop saying and ah so much. And I had to get an app and practice every day I probably do it more now that I haven't been practicing, but I practiced every day talking into this thing that would track my ums and ahs. And then I remember you told Ian, stop tapping on your desk or whatever you're doing. And so,
this was based on feedback from like our audio guy, but also the audience, where they're like, can you stop saying like every other word and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And hopefully we all articulate so much better now.
Yeah. And it, like, I hated the sound of my own voice. I hated seeing myself on video. And the only way
I still do.
I don't
the thing
look.
is, I don't mind now. I can hear my voice and it sounds like it should do.
Yeah, that's
Whereas
it. Like, it sounds like there's no disconnect, right?
Yeah, because it used to be the case that, okay, when I'm talking to myself, it's okay. But when I record it and then play it back, you're like, do I really sound like that? But then there's like it sort of changes like overnight. After you've done it quite a lot of time, you know, your sound is just like, oh, there's no different from me like talking now than when I listen to it back on, you know, on the MP3 or whatever. It's just the same. It's the same with looking at yourself on, not like you've got like, oh, I look so good, but you just get so familiar with it that you then get comfortable and you don't worry too much. But you feel like you talk like a freak and you look much more awkward than you thought you did. And then when you watch yourself enough, you're like, oh no, I'm just like everybody. It's just that I thought.
Yeah, and even if you are slightly awkward, you become less awkward. And I walk around my town centre, video DMing people that message me about the show in a crowded place, looking like a dick bag because I'm like talking to my phone, being like, hey, like, I appreciate you, buddy, like that kind of thing. And people are giving you weird looks. I don't care anymore. Like, that's the power of when you do something enough.
I wanted to go real quick. I wanted to go back to I'm sorry, I cut you off. I'm just going to say I'm going to go back real quick to the whole idea of getting of putting things out. I had read this on Medium. Someone had put it so succinctly. They said, measure your output, not your input. And I just thought that was such great advice, because I mean, like, you look at Ian's, for instance. I mean, I had written a little article about it, and I had said, you know, you go to people that are great on Instagram. It's just an example in a microcosm. Ian, you have to scroll forever. I mean, I literally had to like scroll for like, I don't know, it was 10 minutes or something. It took forever like to get to the bottom of his thing. But he was measuring his output. Like he said, it was nothing compared to what it is now. I mean, it wasn't bad, but now it's amazing. But
I mean, I've just gone on
that input.
I've just gone on Ian's profile. He's done over 1,500 posts.
Wow,
yeah, like, that's some serious, and they're like not quick posts. Take hours and hours, many of them.
That's why I'm feeling so tired now.
And I think I counted. It took like 300 or 400 before it really started to. You saw the sophistication come into it. It's not that it was bad or weak. It was just that this natural
refinement
thing. Yes, and it was like a long time before it happened.
Yeah, like funny enough, we're gonna be better at 100 episodes than we were at 2, and better at 500 than we are at 100. So
Oh, absolutely.
whatever you're doing, I know it's so cliche. We've covered this so many times in the show about like practice makes perfect, but try and like cliches generally don't help because you just write them off. You're like, yeah, I knew that, whatever. But that's why we keep trying to give examples and have guests on talking about this and like break it down
Break it down.
to try and really get it drummed in that like you should suck for a long time. You should keep doing it. The output should be prolific, like Dustin just touched on, because that is the only way to get there. There's no shortcuts.
Yeah.
No.
And that thing of like frustration when you in the middle of something and you know you're not good enough yet. You just have to remember that every action you take, whether you teaching yourself calligraphy or drawing or I don't know, design or whatever, it's every single action you take is just one step closer to getting better and better and better. So nothing is for a waste. You know, the smallest little thing, even if you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever to spend every single day to improve your skill, it's going to get you even closer. So it's not a waste.
Although I know I've given this example a couple of times, I think, about learning guitar and how I think you can plateau if it's like you're playing the same 3 riffs for years and not pushing yourself beyond that. So there is a difference. You need to kind of be proactive in your learning. So if you're producing, say, a YouTube video or an Instagram post, try and look at it objectively and think like, how can I make the next one incrementally that little bit better? Like Brad Colbo touched on that with his YouTube. He was like, I improved the audio a bit and I bought an extra light in to make the lighting slightly better. And so over time, just by iterating, it will get a little bit better. And a year down the line, you look back and you're like, wow, I've come a long way.
Especially if you, sorry, Tom, I was just going to say, especially if you're conscious about your learning, as you said, like if you have a set goal and you want to, like Ian, we all know his story about how he had a very determined goal to learn calligraphy and that was his aim. And the same with learning or, you know, in design or illustration, have a definite goal because it really shapes like the path that you take and how you spend your time, which we all know is precious. So instead of, you know, messing around with stuff that isn't really going to get to your goal, like rather focus on stuff that you think will speed up your learning process to, you know, to help you get there faster.
And I think, you know, that process is so important because like
it is.
You can sit and watch loads of YouTube YouTube videos talking about, you know, lighting in your studio and cameras and the gear, and you can get all the gear and you can get everything you need, but it's the learning of like what works for you. And what works for me doesn't work for Tom. What works for Tom doesn't work for Dustin.
I look best in a dark room. I've learned that.
Yeah. And like I learn every time I like do a video, like you say, is I learn how to put the light in a different way, or I learn how to position the microphone, or I learn how to, you know, I change the lens I'm using. And over that and through that process you learn what works for you. And I think we struggle that, like, you know, I've watched all these things, but I still don't know how to do it. But I think you have to learn on the job. It's doing. I think it's in the process of doing. Like, you sort of store up this sort of memory bank of the stuff you've watched and you've read, and then it sort of like gets sort of pushed out when you're actually doing it. And you might not be ready to do it, but as you're going through the process, you sort of like, oh, hang on a minute, I remember what that one person said, and I can put it here, or remember that. Because you sometimes absorb information that actually isn't relevant now, but once you get further down the line and you acquire a new bit of equipment or something else, you then use that information from back here that you then put into.
Can I ask you about that? If you find this to be true as you're learning, you know, you're talking about as you do it, you learn, which is. When you're doing it, you know, you hear that, like, those pieces of advice, what people on their deathbed say that they regret about their life, or their last advice before they passed away. Like, you guys ever seen those articles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This lady had said to her granddaughter, she'd said, if you're doing it right, it should feel good. And she was applying this to every part of life.
Yeah.
And she's particularly applying it to the area you guys are all thinking of. But
yeah,
but I've thought about it a lot in terms of, like, illustrating, that's something I've struggled with a lot. I really want to be a better illustrator and I try to do it. Do you find, or do you believe, Ian, like when you're doing that stuff, something is not right if you are not enjoying yourself? Like if you feel like it's frustrating and you can't wait till you're done because you don't like it, do you feel like something's wrong, or do you think that's part of the process?
I think that there is a part where it's hard work, because like when I started calligraphy, it was hard work doing the same letter over and over again. There was elements, and you've got that like, oh, am I getting better or not? And it's this, and your hand might be hurting or your back might be hurting. Like when you're learning
but
to
did
draw.
You enjoy it though? Like, did it feel good mentally as you did it? Did you enjoy it?
I can't say that I was enjoying it all the time. Like I don't enjoy my job 100% of the time, and that's just realistic.
Me neither.
I don't think anyone does.
No, but like learning to drive a car is not that enjoyable while you're learning. But when you finally, there was a point, I remember a point when I was learning to drive when I finally got it, it switched from being like really like my brain just constantly thinking about, oh, what's my left hand doing? What's my right hand doing? What's both my feet doing? And then suddenly it clicks and you're able to drive and change gear and, put the clutch in and you brake and you accelerate, indicate all the things that you need to do to be a sensible, safe driver that just come naturally. And then you're able to enjoy driving. And it's not up until that point that actually, there might be enjoyment, but you're like kangarooing along the road, or you're, near misses and your parent is in the car and having to, that process wasn't very enjoyable, but you had to go through it to then get to enjoy all the thing. It's like going back to like real basic, like farmers, it's hard work sowing seed into a field, especially when, technology wasn't where it is today. But then at harvest time, they get to reap it and they get to enjoy all the stuff they've been putting in. And I think for us, it's that, you have to do all that hard work and then you get to enjoy it at the other end, if you get what I mean, or up to a point where, it suddenly changes and you can.
It's delayed gratification, basically.
Yeah. And I don't think personally that we're born to just enjoy everything all the time. I think we have to it has to be hard work, and there has to be, otherwise you just don't enjoy. If it's just great all the time, you're always on a high. I don't think that's a realistic thing to be, and you don't get to enjoy that highs because that becomes
that's not great. That's normal.
Yeah. And so you're then chasing the more further high and you get despondent quicker. But if you're like, okay, this is going to be hard work, but then, you get to enjoy it, and then you've got a bit more of hard work because you're always learning and you're always having to, take on new skills to push your stuff further. And I think, it's hard. It might be hard work because you are not that, it's not coming naturally to you. There's a lot of things that, are hard work. Like if you want to become a basketball player, I think there's a element of realism that actually that's a lot of that's to do with, you couldn't get better at, free throwing and getting balls into the net, but, may never get to play for a team. And that's just being realistic as in terms of actually how your makeup is, in terms of your makeup of your body and, your athletic abilities. And the same, you can get to a certain level. I suppose, yeah. Do you understand where I'm trying to?
I do. I do.
Definitely.
And I'm glad you're touching on some of the harder elements, because it kind of takes me back to an early stage Honest Designers show where we touched on a lot of like mental health and things like that. So it was the hard work and the grind and the stress and the isolation and the burnout. And that for me has been one of the pillars of the show, not in a negative way, but that's the stuff we get the most messages about, because the overriding theme from the listeners has been, oh my God, I thought it was just me. And I thought I was going crazy. And I've been really struggling with this. But to hear other people, especially some people where I look up to their work, etc., go through the same stuff, that makes me feel a lot better about my own journey.
Yeah.
And I'm like most proud of some of those episodes because I think it just puts things in a much healthier perspective for people.
Absolutely. Things are more realistic.
Yeah, and
I have to ask you, Dustin. Sorry, Ian. Just quickly, I have to ask you, did you ask Ian that because you feel that sometimes while you're illustrating that you're not enjoying it and you're questioning whether you should be going down that road? I get a
I think
sense
that, I think that what he's saying is true. And I think whenever I'm doing a certain type of illustration stuff and I really am despising it and dreading it, I make a note to myself that I don't want to do it. I don't think I expect it to be enjoyable, and it's not most of the time. It's more like you're in a zone. It's neither super pleasurable or super horrible. It's just that you're kind of in this zone focusing on what you're doing. But if I'm like, boy, this is a real PIA, then I'm like, maybe I won't do that next time unless I really want to know how to do that. But I was actually thinking more of running.
Is it a style that you're struggling with, or I'm just interested? I'm curious. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, okay. So for instance, like for a long time when I did the 100-day challenge, I was doing a lot of drawings that were inspired by retro, like retro mid-century stuff like I do with Retro Supply, that were inspired by CSA Images, Charles Anderson illustrations and things like that. And then lately I've been drawing, and I found a whole like little subset of people that do stuff like Andy Pizza, the guy from the Creative Podcast. And it would seem that's easier to do that kind of style because it's so much more childish looking, but it actually isn't.
Mm-mm.
But I do find that because I tend to be anxious and overanalyze things, that something is soothing, not easier, but soothing about doing something that feels less like I'm trying to make it perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means. I don't know.
Yeah. And I understand where you're coming from. There's like styles that I want to be proficient in, but I really struggle with. But I suppose for me it's, and I sort of dread, I think there's this thing where you dread the practice because and you can see it's going to be hard. I suppose going down a whole show of metaphors, skateboarders, when they want to learn a new trick, they know that their ankles and their feet and their whole body is going to get injured. Imagine the first time a skateboarder grinds a rail. Do you think that's going to go swimmingly the first 100 times?
I can confirm it absolutely does not.
Yeah. But if you're able to have 51% in the thing, I'm going to keep going over the 49% of all this hurts, I don't want to do it, because when something hurts, in the natural world, you tend to shy away from it, don't you? And so, yeah, as long as there's that percentage, because once you can do it, that percentage becomes bigger in favor of the trick. There's less of it. Obviously it goes wrong. It's never going to be perfect at the time, but the percentage of you doing it is much higher, and so the enjoyment's higher.
Mm-hmm. Ian, I'll give you a perfect example, which I brought up when we shared our stories. I started my design career doing design contests, and when I started, I won none of them. So I burnt a load of time and made no money. And then I won 1 in 10, and then 1 in 5, and before I knew it, I was winning 50% of them. And at the time of being a young teenager, I was getting my design career off the ground, learning a lot, and making, at the time, what was quite decent money. That's the exact same analogy, and I've seen that play out in all of our careers, where it's we're basically putting in that upfront work, sucking at something, but then it slowly the scales tip and it starts to pay off.
Well, I think that's kind of it. So for me, with Retro Supply, I put a lot of time into making these products really good. I put a lot of time into things that are not necessarily pleasant. In fact, kind of one of the premises of the business was there's things that really suck about making a product. And so I'm going to do that sucky work for people so they can continue to draw or do whatever they're doing and avoid that part that sucks about, say, making Photoshop brushes. It's a pain, man. So to do that, I don't love making those, but you make them for people and you make them really great and say, I'm going to be the one to take care of this for people that are doing this kind of work. You know what I mean? So I think that maybe in my own illustration stuff, I'm no, I will deal with a certain tolerance of pain, but I am not going to be trying to do Leonardo da Vinci, anatomical studies and stuff like that. I don't want to be that person. I want to make a mess. I want to be good at making a mess, but I don't. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Lisa?
Yes, I do. But I also want to just, I mean, I don't know if this is advice or I guess from my own experience, that I often find that when I am drawn to a particular style that I know I'm going to suck at, that always going to be uncomfortable to do or difficult or whatever, there's a reason. There's a part of you that wants to explore that. So it might not necessarily be that you have to fully commit to that new style or figure it out. It's just maybe there's a hint of it that you need to apply or introduce into your own work. So it's almost like your subconscious or your creative side is giving you little clues along the way of things that you should like maybe look at, maybe experiment, maybe figure out, maybe it's a case of like you just need to look at a whole bunch of stuff of that style that could trigger something else in you, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to master it. So
that's a good advice, and that kind of ties into that Lauren Holm thing. Like you could say, hey, for 2 weeks, I'm going to do this style. I think I hate it.
Exactly.
But I think it's going to be good to know, and then we'll close that door forever if we want.
Well, precisely, because I've done that, especially when I was trying to figure out my style, and I would go down avenues where I thought, oh, this is it. This is my style. It's going to be so cool. And within like a month of trying it or figuring it out, I hated it. It was like I was struggling. It didn't work, and it looked terrible. But I did learn. I took like little pieces from it. So it's like again, Bob the Builder, I took a brick. I took a brick from that, and I took a brick here and a brick there, and before I knew it, I had my own house in my own style. So what I'm saying is don't ignore it, but at the same time don't torture yourself in trying to perfect it, because that is horrible.
I think people constrain themselves so much, and when we had Blair on, he was talking about there's a room with 12 doors, and people feel like if they open one, they're missing out on what's behind the other 11. But when you actually open that one, it leads to a corridor where there's an infinite number of doors, more than you could ever imagine.
And
I really like
that metaphor. In terms of metaphors, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was really
awesome. I was like, because like, I was just from my experience, like I said on the show, that I thought that just, I wasn't worried. I was just so enjoying this one thing that I just kept doing it. I thought it could be a bolt on to my jack of all trades thing. It was like, oh, brilliant! I can offer a website and have like a handmade logo on the thing as well. But in the end, actually, just taking away everything else and just having this one thing that I could be known for. That's the thing. It's like when people like know, when you're saying, oh, what does he do? And you can't pinpoint what they actually do.
Yeah.
Then that's probably not a good thing, because other people will think that as well, and they just don't know what you do. They might, you might be like a graphic designer. Well, that's great, but what does that mean? If I've got
what's he good at?
If I've got I need a logo, is because the people who need the logo don't actually understand what a graphic designer does. So
no,
what you need to do is like, if you're a logo specialist, then people know, oh, I need a logo, and I go to the logo specialist rather than a graphic designer, because like, you need to be known for that, whatever that may be. It doesn't mean you can't do all the rest of the stuff. It's that you yourself needs to sort of put like a flag up saying, this is what I specialize in.
I'm so picturing like classic stereotypical early stage portfolio where it would be like TW design with a Z on the end, designs.com. And then it would be a bunch of like really awful work and like doing it. I'll do it, anything you want, everything under the sun. And I do it like, and we've all been there. So anyone who's there, don't feel bad. But as Ian says, recognize that niching, that has been another recurring theme of the show. Like
it has.
Try a lot, but pay attention to what's working and what you're naturally gravitate towards.
It doesn't have to be just one, a couple, but it needs to be something that people can know that, Jack is good at doing whatever, and then you revolve your branding around what you're doing.
Sorry, I nearly said Jill.
Yeah.
Terrible joke. Sorry, far too loud. Okay, so I would say another pillar, like something we've talked about on the show, is being nice. Like legitimately, that is a
Yes.
recurring theme in terms of actually respecting your clients, treating your clients well, your customers well, being
And
transparent.
even your peers.
Yeah, your peers, like
Yeah.
everything, like basically not being a massive douche in the industry. And I think that is something that's threaded right through the show. Like there's a pretty limited number of pillars we keep coming back to, right? It's like niche down, work hard, suck for a long time, but realize you're going to get better. Like try different stuff, be nice and respectful. Like
Put
there's
stuff out.
probably like half a dozen pillars, which we
Yeah. Like
totally
learn,
touch on.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the nice thing, it's interesting because I think it really it ties into mental health in a lot of ways. You got to think of
Yes.
the future cost of being unkind or difficult. So, I mean, for instance, you might close off opportunities to work with that person. But on top of that, like, remember, if you decide that you want to argue with someone in YouTube comments, just like realize you might lose 3 hours of your life that week, like either being upset or going back and forth with them or like questioning yourself. So, I mean, being nice for purely selfish reasons is like a very healthy thing to do for your mental well-being.
Yeah, and you know, I know Blair said that you have to, I don't know, he seemed to have this kind of thing where he implied, you know, by the end of the meeting, if the client hates you but they've hired you, you've done your job. I'm not so sure I totally agree with that.
I think he was making a point that it's dangerous to hold likability above quality of service. It should be a
Absolutely,
very
which is
close second, in my opinion.
Yes, which is a no-brainer, of course. But I just think that if you come with both of them like married together, I think you got to win it. It's like there's a no-brainer. The client's going to hire you. So yeah, for me, being kind is definitely. It's like your attitude, your experience, as you said, Dustin. It all adds up. I mean, these things. It's like your footprint on Earth, and I mean, do you want a douchebag footprint or
Yeah, absolutely.
or a nice footprint?
And you know what's funny, and this, I guess, there's always counters to everything. Is we've been focusing a lot on this brand promise. I actually hate saying that word; it makes me want to vomit a little bit.
Wait, what does brand?
Brand promise. Like we had to like figure out our brand promise. I'm going to this book called Clockwork. It's a fantastic book, but they talk about using the brand promise to get to the core action, one of the core actions that defines the business, like an actual true verb action. And anyways, when we were analyzing the route, one of the things that had come up was a lot of people like have said, well, we come back to you because you respond to our emails and you take care of things and make sure it gets solved. And I know that if I buy something from you and I have trouble, like you guys don't make me feel dumb. And I've even had people come to me at conferences and say, you know, this other place, they do really cool stuff. I would have bought from them, but you guys like respond and are so nice. So it does make a difference. I mean, it really does. I mean, some people, like I had multiple people last time I was at a conference come up to me and tell me that. I buy from you because I know that I won't feel like you're an elitist or I'm not as good as you. And I know that you will help me.
Yeah, we get it all the time, every day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't possibly do business like that. I mean, even if you, I don't know. To me, I find that insane to be like that.
Yeah,
it just doesn't.
But people
make
do.
Sense.
People do run businesses like that.
Well, we've had the funny
I know.
episodes of like,
It's
ha
weird.
ha ha, here's some client nightmares. But the common thread that we're trying to give out is like, it doesn't really help to get in a room or get on social media and be like bitching about clients and how terrible they are. That doesn't help you. It's like try and empathize, try and get in their head, try and actually like take some feedback on board from them and you see it through their eyes and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you're going to have your days where you're frustrated. I mean, we're all human, but at the end of the day, you know, it's that whole like they need you, you need them. So why not have a pleasant experience while you're doing it? You know?
I feel like we need an anagram. We need to compile all these pillar words. It's like niceness,
true.
hard work. What's the other stuff? Like practice. It's like Hufflepuff or something. Get it?
Oh, wait. No, I think that it just made niceness, hard work. Wait, it almost made nap.
Nap.
Dustin likes that
Yeah,
one.
of course you do.
Niceness, appreciation, and persistence.
There. Yeah. Nap.
Let's take a nap.
You sure take a nap every day.
Yeah.
We totally need to turn it into like a little Instagram card or something. The Pillars of the Honest Designers Show.
Should sell it for $50,000.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been playing the long game. This is our final reveal for the 100th episode. We're going to be charging to listen to the show in future.
Imagine that. That would be the creepiest thing on earth. I think I would.
And then upsell them on a $2,000 design course.
No.
You know, one thing that I feel like ties all of this stuff together, of all the guests we've had, of us, of everything, is that you could go look at all 4 of our sites. Well, you'd have to probably use like the time Machine's website or whatever for Tom.
The Wayback
But if
Machine.
you go back and look, if you go back and look at everyone, we all did stuff that makes us cringe. And I think that every guest that's been on the show has done so much stuff that makes them cringe. And it's almost like the price to get onto the ride is, some X amount of tickets that make you cringe.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I'm always very weary of people who've not got work that's embarrassing or cringy.
It means they delete it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But you know what? I think it's so healthy to like really embrace your earlier stuff, and even though it's cringeworthy, it's like a war scar in a way. It's like you've been there, and I think it's something to be proud of, that you've put in your time, and you've achieved amazing stuff. Whatever you've managed to get through. So
We're like the weathered, haggard old veterans who are like,
Yes.
I got nothing but my memories, man. So I sit on my little microphone and I share them with the world every week.
Exactly.
If we keep doing this for years and years and years, we'll eventually,
We'll be OGs.
talking about how the good old days.
Yeah, I remember when it was tablets, none of this virtual reality nonsense, Ian.
Imagine
You dropped
we should
another
do-
what's it in your beard. Let me get it
Saying
out.
that, maybe we can do a VR one where we all got headsets on, we all can see each other.
Ooh,
Do you know,
that'd
we're
be
in
cool.
the same room via
We'll
VR.
be in an arena with the 750,000 listeners.
Yeah. How
That'd
cool
be
would
cool.
that be?
Dude, why don't we just turn this into a what's it called, a Twitch channel where we just all play like Battlefield or like some sort of war game while we talk, and like we kill each other like with like
And we annoy all the other random players with just design
Yes.
theory chat.
Yeah. Stop using papyrus.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. Sorry. I'm a girl.
I'm not a gamer either, don't worry. Given that I am an adult man. Some of my
adult
best
man.
friends love gaming still, and I just grew out of it.
Well, you're saying just because I have this, or just because I have toys surrounding me that I'm not, just because I lock the door and say that it's playtime for me and that Daddy will be out soon.
Yeah.
That sounds wrong on so
That
many levels.
sounded really creepy.
we got that on air. I almost
Why
want
you
to
guys
end.
gotta be
we
like
do.
that?
Yeah, I want to end the episode on that.
Or that bombshell.
Same color as my shirt.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
that
that's
was a
tickled
good
me.
one. That was a good one.
Yeah, thank you once again, though, so much, guys. I can't wait for what the next year, 10 years, who knows, is going to bring. But yeah, as we touched on earlier, I think we're going to be stepping it up, doing some cool live stuff. And thank you for being the best damn listenership out of any
Yeah.
podcast.
Oh,
Yeah, that's been really.
we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Means the world to us. Really, really and truly.
When my kids are not listening to me, it's good to know there's other people.
Well said, Ian. I like that.
Every so often you dish out such a solid one-liner.
Yeah, that is
Such
it.
Maybe I should say that. So like, why don't you listen to me? All the audience on my podcast do.
Yeah, 250,000 people listen to me. No, 750,000 people listen to me. Why can't I get my 2 kids to, or 3 kids to?
Well, guys, we will see you next week. Can't wait to, what a terrible sign off. That's the worst sign off ever. I think we're all tired. We got to the end of 100 episodes. It's like, I'm knackered. I think we need to go have a break. Lisa, you're about to go on vacation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, thank you truly, guys, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. All refreshed and ready to go.
I certainly hope so. After bye from us.
See ya.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.